Hi, everybody. I'm Leigh Kade from the Geek Show podcast, and today we're going to be doing a deep dive on Picard Season 3, Episode 4, and also featuring this guy, Mr. Kerry Jackson.
Oh, hi.
Thanks so much for joining us, everybody, and if you like what we're doing, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps us make things go, as our friends the Packlage used to say. And
you make us go fast.
Make us go fast. You can make us go. So also, we are joined by some folks today, Shipwreck Sean, Brett, and looks like also, Brett and Shipwreck Sean are joining us in chat. So if you folks are watching in the playback, our Patreon subscribers get to watch the show as we record it live. Today we're talking about No-Win Scenario, which is Episode 4 of Season 3. And I think it's a little tip of the hat to the Kobayashi Maru scenario.
Oh, absolutely. They make reference to the no-win scenario a lot in Trek.
Yes. And before we get too far into this, I just have to say this might be in my top 10 episodes or installments of Trek of all time.
Like, of all time?
Yeah.
Wow. I gotta say, I was completely blown away by this episode. I mean, this season so far has been good.
Yeah.
But as it started going along, I'm like, man, this is really good. And then it ended, and I had no one to turn to because my wife won't watch it with me. So I turned to the dogs and I said, guys, that was the Trekkiest Trek, whatever Trek to Trek.
And they were like, oh, hey, snack, treat, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
We have here what I'd have to say is phenomenal stewardship from the showrunner for this season and Season 2 of Picard, which, I lost interest in that pretty early, and I feel like maybe I need to go back. But the showrunner for this is Terry Matalas, who was also one of the showrunners on the 12 Monkeys series, which was, from what I've heard, really good. I feel like I need to go back and find out.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I stayed with it until they canceled it.
Yeah, they've made some decisions with this third season of Picard that I think are phenomenal because it shows a maturity in character development that I don't think a lot of shows have a patience for. And a lot of that is trusting an actor, and in this case, an actor who actually has a pedigree in Star Trek. Todd Stashwick actually played a Vulcan who was actually a Romulan way back in Enterprise in the early 2000s.
Oh, wow.
So he is a huge Star Trek fan, but he's also worked with Terry Matalas a lot. And at some point they said, we have this character, this broken character, and we want to have you play him. And this is amazing because what they've done is they've taken the concept of trauma and how trauma informs a character. And I know you and I can both relate to this from incidents that have happened in our lives. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there was a stab in the dark last week when we talked about Shaw.
You were right. You were so right. You called it. It's like you had the script and you were reading from it.
I wish I'd had the script because this is a script I would like to read. But for folks that are watching along, I will show you the reason why I was able to make this wild stab in the dark. It's right there on the screen. The ship that Shaw was on was the USS Constance, and it was lost in action on Stardate 44002.3, which any of you who have watched certain periods of Star Trek would know was the Battle of Wolf 359.
Wolf 359. That's your first episode of Deep Space Nine. It's a deep dive there. That's how Sisko. That's why Sisko hates Picard so much.
Oh my gosh!
Everybody hates Picard for Wolf 359, even though it's Locutus, not Picard. But that's another story.
The only Borg so horrifying they gave him a name.
I love that part. I love that part, and that's a whole speech from this new captain that we started hating, but now we're loving.
He's so good. He's so good. And I've been watching interviews with this guy. Again, Todd Stashwick, he's a nerd. He's one of us. He's been watching Star Trek since he was a little kid. He's talking about watching it in syndication, classic series. He's talking about times where people would come on the set of the Titan and get on the chair, and he's like, that's my chair. And this is stuff that, and hearing interviews talk to him about how you can tell when an actor is a Trek fan by how they go on the bridge.
Yeah.
And if you watch the first episode of this season, he comes on the bridge. he knows his Trek. That guy knows. And there's so much. I could talk about Shaw for an hour. This character.
I think he's the new upcoming Trek character. I hope that they, I mean, like I said, he started as a jerk, and now, I mean, he's technically still a jerk, even though we love him. So I'm hoping that they don't kill him or anything.
He has a line that at some point being an asshole replaced charm.
Yes. And how many people do we know?
Oh my gosh! So there's this amazing thing. Again, going back to I work in the mental health field, and there's something that we are in the mental health industry trying to steer the entire industry towards right now, which is trauma-informed care. Because if we can identify a person's trauma, we can then cater the care of that person, that individual, to that trauma to help them approach it, to grapple with it, and then to find ways around it. Because we have these traumatic incidents in our lives, loss of loved ones, accidents, illness, homelessness. All of these things can traumatize us and cause these injuries that make it hard for us to move around. And in this case, we have a man who, during the Battle of Wolf 359, as he said, just a grease monkey, just an idiot kid from Chicago, and the first officer picks out 10 people to put on the only lifeboat left on the ship.
At random.
At random.
Just,
and he's one of them.
Yeah.
That trauma informed the rest of his career. From that point forward, in that first episode when he says, what you gentlemen don't understand is I have the lives of hundreds of people on this ship. Well, that is spoken by a guy who was one of 10 out of hundreds that survived that battle.
Oh, and he's racked with survivor's guilt. You could just see it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's where this show goes off the rails from great Trek into phenomenal Trek, into mind-bogglingly, we don't deserve this Trek. You get the pioneers, you get the amazing characters that they have allowed to flourish in Riker and Picard.
Well, I found this list. Somebody who loves this episode as much as we do.
Yeah.
It has everything that you want in a Star Trek story. It's got the necessity of collaboration and teamwork.
Yeah.
An inspirational captain speech.
Yeah.
A reminder that the universe is vast and wondrous. Life and death stakes. A seemingly unsolvable problem. A surprise revelation about the big bad.
Yes.
And a heart-to-heart talk between legacy characters. And it's all around, the gravity well thing was the least important thing to me. It was it was all about these moments between characters and that the whole Jack Crusher story that he's telling his son in the bar. So good, And
question I would have named you that myself.
Yeah.
Is where Picard says, you'd think he'd want to think to himself, oh, I might name you, if I had a son, I might name you after my brother that I lost in that tragic fire. Or I might name you after, or Henri, or any of these other characters. He's like, no, I would have named you Jack too. He was amazing.
Wow. But it's just so many of these moments, including with Riker and Deanna. On the phone with each other, him trying to do his last will and testament, so to speak. Trying to apologize to her, and he can't do it
because he hasn't grappled with the trauma of losing their son.
And you see, all of these things that we're talking about here, I know so many people who say there's too much talking in Star Trek, and I'm like, no, you're missing the best part. Because it is, as the motion picture, old guy talking, the human adventure is just beginning. That's how I always explained when, back in the 70s, 80s, when it was Star Wars and Star Trek battling each other. I said, yeah, they're both different things. You got Star Wars over here, and you've got the human adventure over here. This is about us. And that's what's great about this show. That's what I've always loved about this show, is because it is about the human condition, the human adventure.
Sean has a question there. If we're dealing with trauma and such, do you think we'd see Ezra Dax in her counselor role, especially as we're bringing in more references to DS9? I would say if we didn't already have a phenomenal counselor in Deanna, that Ezra would be great for this. Where we could see Ezra, though, and is in that Deanna is not removed from the situation. She's actually part of the situation, so a good therapist would ask someone else to intervene. So,
that's true. Got a point. Yeah, I don't think that we will see Ezra because business. But
I would love to, and also she's a person who got the short part of the stick there because so many people were upset with Terry Farrell leaving that they didn't give the actress playing Ezra a chance to be awesome, right? So.
And what was great about Ezra was we're getting off the track here, but with Ezra is that she had those shoes to fill, and they wrote that into the character.
Yeah.
Dax cast a long shadow, and so Ezra, who never necessarily wanted to be a host, winds up being a host, and is just the shadow of Dax is everywhere, and not just Curzon, which is kind of what Jadzia had to fight against and made her own, but Jadzia was a damn legend by that time, and so here comes this kid, and I'm so glad that they wrote that as part of the character. It's just, let's address the elephant in the room, so to speak.
I love that. So talking about this episode, because I'll go on the Ezra Dax train anytime you want to, too, because I think that's, again, a character, again, just amazingly underrated and not allowed to flourish in a show that was underrated and not allowed to flourish. They set this episode up with this phenomenal wraparound with Picard sitting in, I believe is it the LA 10 forward somewhere on Earth.
That's the LA version of 10 forward. That's from season 2.
He's sitting down to have a phenomenal meal to celebrate Frontier Day, and a bunch of shy kids come up to ask him questions. Here he is. He's the phenomenal Starfleet
the legend.
Admiral Picard.
Yeah, and having fish and chips in a bar.
Tell us your greatest hits. And so he tells us a couple stories that were never shown before, that were never copied about. But he also talks about Darmok. There's a little throw off to that, which is fantastic.
Which is also a great episode. You should watch if you haven't.
One of the best ever. And they use this as a framing element for the entire episode, which went somewhere that I did not expect. We'll get to that at the end of this. But you're dealing with relationships. You're dealing with, again, trauma. And we go to Jack Crusher, who has his own trauma of being the son of Jean-Luc Picard and knowing that. And wondering how do you deal with that? How do you deal with, waking up one day and finding out that your father is that?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Again, and we've just got such great acting happening here. Everybody involved. I've never said that. I've never said that Frakes was a great actor until now. I think he's gotten into it now.
Directing has made him an actor.
I think so.
And there are scenes in this season where I would love to have seen that side of him, that maturity and that joy de vivre.
Yes.
He has this great moment towards the beginning of the episode where he goes in to apologize to Jean-Luc, and of course Jean-Luc is like going to apologize to him for everything that I had a problem with in the third episode. And it's like no, I was out of line. And he's like, no, but you were right. And I love that. And then we start getting into some of the mechanics with the changelings. I won't get too much into it with Vadic. They didn't really show her too terribly much, but Vadic cut her hand off and stuck it in a bowl, and we get this, I'll just show you.
Yeah, what? I'm not quite sure how to describe this. Go ahead.
Well, the changelings...
Because I'm still not sure what it is.
The changelings appear to be made of bacon now, and...
which they should, really. I mean, granted, the effects back then, we were A, on a budget, and B, it was the 90s.
30 years ago.
Yeah.
With Odo.
So with Odo, it was always that strange gold shimmery kind of thing.
Right. And now it's like molten bacon.
And now it looks like flesh. I don't even want to see the Great Link now.
Oh, so no, just to see a molten bacon, every once in a while somebody pops out of it and says, "I'm part of the collective." Yeah. So there's some threatening stuff there. She doesn't have the asset, and they're like, if you know what's good for goo, you will get out there and get that guy.
And we still don't know why. That's what's great about this.
No,
we still don't know why Jack,
40% of the season is over, and we still have no idea where we're going, but it's a fun ride.
I know, right?
Oh my gosh.
But so many, and remember, these are characters who we thought have already been developed.
Yeah.
I mean, between how many movies and how many seasons, we thought that these characters have been developed, but we were still getting more. Riker's loss of faith, and because of his son's death, and it destroyed his marriage nearly.
And his tendency to run away.
Yeah,
right. That when the going gets tough, he's going to get out of there. And that's an interesting thing.
Seven finally embracing the fact that she's never going to be textbook Starfleet.
No. And Shaw embracing the fact that that's maybe okay.
And that's okay, yeah.
He talked about that a bit in one of the interviews that I read with him. They've confirmed now that he did choose her as his number one.
Oh,
which
really?
I found interesting. And they're like,
that is fascinating.
Yeah, it's because his incident on his ship that caused him to be too reserved, and he knew it. So he went with somebody who was willing to maybe take more risks that he could then shoot down, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But his animosity towards the Borg notwithstanding, he understood her potential for greatness and for her potential to take or suggest and recommend risks that he wouldn't normally take. So an interesting development there too, in that there's a great interaction between them where he's on in his quarters, and she comes in to talk to him about this changeling that's on the ship, and there's this great humor, a great little nod to Odo, but does he call it a goocepticle or receptacle? Or something.
I think is what he said.
Yeah, go find the bucket.
Go find his bucket.
And you'll find your changeling. Because
I was just like, well, duh. Yeah, of course he. I didn't know that the changelings had their own personal bucket. Maybe they do. I didn't know, because the only changeling we've ever known is Odo, and that was never really addressed in Deep Space Nine. It's just that he had a bucket. That's all we knew.
It seems to be a culturally significant bucket, because this changeling has a very similar bucket to Odo's bucket,
and maybe that's a cultural thing, like you said. Wow, I didn't even think about that.
Maybe it's lined with something that just makes the bacon feel better while it's at rest.
A good theory, which I'll bet you're not wrong.
Yeah, it's like a plastic lining to keep it fresh. I don't know, because the bacon. And I have to agree with Shipwreck Sean here in comments. Yes, it probably does smell like bacon if you vaporize a changeling.
It would, wouldn't it?
At least that's what you have to assume. We had a couple other things thrown at us too. There's a moment where Riker tells Picard, "You need to go spend some time with your son," and they go to the holodeck program of 10 Forward LA, and Picard's had his winery dissed at every turn this season. He
has, hasn't he?
He presents Shaw with the bottle at the dinner in the first episode, and Shaw's like, "Oh, wow, I'm a Maltok guy." He tries to pour some for his son, and his son's like, "I'm a Jameson's guy."
Whiskey cheap. Cheapest you got.
Cheap as you got. So they pull up Jameson's product placement for the episode.
If that's the case, I mean, Jameson ain't exactly cheap, but it's certainly not the lower shelf stuff anyway.
No, yeah. Maybe that's just Picard saying, "Well, I'll go with the cheapest I can stomach." I'm not sure.
I'll go with this one because I know it is.
And we find out that the ships of this period of time prioritize their holodecks so that if all ship systems are compromised, the holodeck stays present so that people can use it for whatever they need.
It's like, if there is impending doom, don't think about it. Go
to the holodeck.
Go be the Robin Hood. Go be the detective. Go
have
do that.
Some mud baths with Luxana Troy.
Yeah, I was going to say Vulcan Love Slave, but the classic program.
Right.
They did not skimp on the effects or cinematography or any of that stuff. This is movie quality Trek, man.
So good. And the whole episode, they have this, and again, they keep going back to Picard telling stories to these youngsters 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But the nebula they're in keeps having these flashes of organic energy, and Crusher, being a doctor, starts timing them and comes up with this wild hypothesis that then Jack runs with, which then they present to Riker, and Riker's like, "I don't know what you two are talking about, but I like the cut of your crazy."
Well, and then they look at each other and go, "Farpoint."
Farpoint, yeah. It's space babies. Whatever they're in, the nebula is having contractions, and whenever a contraction happens, it sends out an energy pulse, and if they can just figure out a way to get enough energy into the warp nacelles, they can fill the ship up with energy and skate right on out of there. And gosh, what do they need? They need a idiot grease monkey from Chicago.
Yeah. It's the teamwork. Again, that's what
teamwork.
makes Trek great, you know?
It's amazing. So they get Shaw and they get Seven up in the warp nacelles, getting the nacelles pried open because these ships are just parts of old ships, and he knows how to work them because he was in engineering. And oh my goodness, there's some great stuff with changelings. There's how do you get better than this?
I know, right? That's what I was. That's why I texted you. I said we just don't. They should just not put out the rest of the series. Just say that was it. That's where we're ending.
Yeah,
you know,
but
because
they might be going better.
But
than this.
That's what I'm wondering is how do you get better than this? Good Lord.
Oh my gosh. There's a fantastic bit where Jack and Beverly are trying to convince Riker, because Picard's already going along for the ride. They're trying to convince Riker to go ahead and go for it. Let's do this thing. Let's ride this wave of of contraction energy that's coming out of this nebula to get out of this ship. And Jack's drunk. You can tell he's drunk because he keeps talking about this space babies.
Because he's had too many Jamesons. That's not synthahol, young man.
So, but we skipped over. We've talked about it just a little bit. Yeah. But there is a bit where Jack and Picard are having their talk. They're having their heart to heart. And again, it throws back to the beginning of Deep Space Nine. Mm-hmm. Shaw sits down at the bar, and he's loopy because Beverly's been giving him the good meds. And he says, "You're old man, during all this great time of recollection," because Picard's talking about all the adventures of when he and Jack used to slip off on shore leave on the Stargazer to get laid. Yeah. And and Shaw says, "Oh, your old man ever tell you about when we met?"
That was, oh man, that was I was expecting a fight. I was expecting a bar brawl.
No, instead you just got an evisceration, a lyrical evisceration. Will Wheaton, talking about this episode, said it's the only time in the 35 years he's known Patrick Stewart where he's ever seen the man look small, because he took that beating and left the holodeck.
Exactly. And, well, I mean, what do you say back? He's right, you know.
Well, that's the other thing about Shaw. He's never wrong. Everything he said is right. He's an asshole, but he's right.
I mean, he brings the room down, but right, Brett? It's a way to bring the room down, Shaw.
Exactly.
Thanks,
So we get this amazing speech from this amazing new captain that we were all pretty sure we were going to hate. Please don't kill him. Please don't kill him.
I'm begging you, Picard. I'm begging you.
I have a feeling they're going to kill him, but please don't kill him. We get to see something that in the past we always referred to the Riker Maneuver as Riker crashing a ship into an object.
Because that's his thing.
That's his thing. Generations, he crashes the saucer section into the planet. I believe in Nemesis, he crashes the entire ship, the Enterprise E, through the plot.
Yep.
Because there's not much else going on there.
Thank you.
But we have a new Riker maneuver now. As they're leaving the nebula, Riker uses a tractor beam to grab an asteroid and throw it at the strike.
I had flashbacks to Mars Attacks. You remember when the Martians picked up the big stone and rolled it against the Easter Island heads? Yeah.
Now he got this trick from Vadic. It's her fault because she threw Beverly and Jack's ship at the Titan with the tractor beam in the second episode. But oh my goodness, it's so Riker. Right?
And I loved that somebody said, "Did you just throw at the ship?" Said, "Yeah, I guess I did." Yeah.
Oh my gosh! So there's a reason why when you go back to the classic Next Gen episode, Barclay's protomorphosis syndrome, Riker devolved to a caveman.
That's right.
Caveman throw rock.
I forgot. Oh man, it all works.
It's an amazing episode. Altogether, dreams came true for me in so many ways, and
we had everything. And here's the thing about the show: the credits rolled. I said to the dogs, "Greatest Trek, whatever Trek to Trek," and then I realized we didn't get our B story. None of it.
No. This was all just this front and center.
This was all on the Titan. There was no Raffi Wharf adventures.
No.
It was just this. And I just, wow. That's just some great storytelling. That's just, because you didn't miss it. That's not, I'm not saying that the B story is not interesting. No. It is. And it's going to be important, but it was like, no, we got to take care of this right now.
Yeah. Well,
we've got to focus on this.
They did leave some hints to it when the Shrike goes back into the nebula after Meat Jesus tells Vadic that she has to go back in. She says, jettison the device, and they jettison their portal device, and as it's spinning by, you can see that it has Daystrom plastered on the side of it, so it's and great that, a small part from one episode of Classic Trek has managed to live on so long with Richard Daystrom continuing to get shout-outs to this day. We get the birth of the Star Jellies.
Well, now, isn't that the same space jellyfish that...
from Farpoint?
From Farpoint.
I don't know. They're not holding hands, so I can't tell without the hand holding. But I love that Beverly goes, seek out new life. And then Riker goes, how about we boldly get the hell out of here?
Well, I love it because it's acknowledge those two lines. They acknowledge the show and also the comedy. We got a little comedy here, because that's the kind of jokes that you'd make on the bridge, you would.
And
you're breathing a sigh. Yeah.
We've established that the opening speech of Classic Trek and TNG is actually the Starfleet Charter. They established that in the last episode of Enterprise. So it's great to hear her being like, oh, this is part of the Charter. And he's like, yeah. And then boldly get the hell out of here.
Exactly. Now here's my question, because you're a lot more observant than I am. And we'll get to the ending bit here in a moment. Is our big bad a changeling, or is she only part changeling? Because she cut her hand off. So I'm wondering if it's like just part of her is changeling.
But her hand came back on. This is my theory. Okay.
Because why would you? Because you wouldn't need a knife if you were a changeling. You could just and plop it out, right?
Theory.
Okay, go with me.
She plunked her bacon hand into a vessel that had liquid in it. Okay. I think that was part of the Sea of the Great Collective. That was like water from the Sea of the Great Collective. And by cutting her bacon hand off and dropping it into the guatorium there, it allowed her to create a link to the collective that they could communicate through. So whoever it is, the renegade aspect of the collective, as we know from episode 3, these are renegades. The renegade leader was able to communicate through that part of her flesh, through that part of whatever the Sea of the Collective is. That's my theory.
I like it. It's good enough for me. I'll take it.
They seem to be able to communicate through just about anything. Now, wrapping things up.
Yes, our little hint at the end about Jack.
Well, right before that.
Oh.
I'm glad you remembered that, because I forgot.
Yeah.
They do one last cut to Picard living through his glory days and all the smiling ensigns gushing and fawning over him, and this voice from the bar says, well, what about a family, sir? What about a family? Did you ever think about a family? And Picard, again, completely flush with all this adoration and fawning.
All of this is happening, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Starfleet gave me the only family I ever need. And they cut.
Yeah.
They cut, and it's Jack. He keeps saying, and Beverly said, he said he never wanted to have a relationship with you. And the whole thing is, he did seek him out at some point to see if maybe he could introduce to him. And then he hears this, well, Starfleet's the only family I've ever needed.
And Picard is just saying that in front of the fans.
Right.
That's just something that you would say in front of the fans, because these are young cadets and they're looking to me for inspiration. And so that is what he was doing. He wasn't saying, F you, Jack. He wasn't doing that.
Well, he didn't know.
He didn't know. I mean, he was just saying that for the fans. So anyway, now, the final moments. I had to turn my closed captioning on because of the sound mix and everything. Because I began to notice, and someone pointed it out to me. It says, throughout the first 4 episodes, you're seeing this strange tendril-like stuff in background shots and things like that. And then we get Jack, who's having kind of some sort of panic attack or some kind of thing. splashing water on his face, and he's hearing voices. And the voices are saying, look for me. What was it again?
Yeah, look for me or seek me out or something along those lines.
Seek me out. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's some hints maybe in the closing credits. There's a computer display that keeps saying things like seek no harm, things like that. So I don't know. I'm maybe trying for a hat trick here. There are hints and clues we've learned from Discovery. They plant little clues in the end credits. So I find myself watching the end credits going, clue?
Yeah.
Clue?
Yeah. I think that's pretty smart. I don't have the patience, but that's pretty smart. It's come find me or something like that is what you're saying.
Yeah. So what is that? Why is he being hunted by, look, we figured it out why the Rangers were hunting him and the Starfleet was hunting him. It wasn't either of those. It was Changelings. Why are these renegade Changelings hunting Jack Crusher or Jean-Luc Picard and Beverly Crusher's kid? Like, what's the secret there? Why are they stealing Daystrom stuff? What does Worf and Rafi and eventually, potentially Lore, we definitely know Geordi's coming back. What's bringing this crew back together to unravel the mystery of Jack Crusher?
Now, our chat rooms are saying that the closed caption give you a lot of clues, so watch every episode with them on. That's probably a good idea. I should have done that. Let's see.
Sean?
Shipwreck Sean, that's a bold guess there, Shipwreck Sean, but I like it. The prophets.
They communicate to people in dreams, right? They were always communicating to Cisco in dreams, in visions.
And it was the Changelings were there, so.
Okay.
And he says they are known for giving people painful visions, and he was certainly in anguish.
And such a rash.
That's not a bad guess, Sean.
That's a really good guess. Like, I think, so that means that maybe we'll go to DS9 and then I'll scream and explode and you'll never see me again.
Oh, please. I know we're not going to get it, but if I were to see Kira,
Just show me the station. Show me the station rendered in today's technology.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because we haven't gotten a 4K upgrade of Deep Space Nine yet, have we?
It's going to be Tribbles and, or is it Trials and Tribulations, the DS9 episode where they go back to Kirk's time, and we're getting to see, Kirk era Starfleet in 1990s special effects tech. So what happens if we see DS9 in modern day tech? It's
people are asking of videos of us, the cameras pointed at us while we watch these episodes. People are asking for that.
You don't want to watch old men cry.
Exactly. I was just going to say that because I confessed the other day, and it's true. Damn it! When the opening theme starts, I start crying.
Yeah, and they're pulling some audio tricks on us with this particular show because it's using the next gen theme. It's using elements of the old Alexander Courage theme from the 60s. It uses bits of the motion pictures theme. It's giving us little bits, like this is my science fiction music. Sure, Star Wars is great, but it's John Williams. You know John Williams' score when you hear it. This is so many different composers over the better part of a century giving us the soundtrack of our hearts and our adventure, our adventuresome spirit. That's the soundtrack of it. So when you mash it all together and make it work really well, I'm going to get misty-eyed, and you don't get to see that.
Yeah, you're doing it to me now. All right. Damn it.
Excited. The new episode drops on Thursday. We'll be back next Monday to do another deep dive live. And again, like and subscribe if you like what we're doing.
It'll be next Monday at 3 p.m. Mountain Time.
Mountain Time.
In our time zone. So if you're joining us from around the world, please do.
Yeah, we appreciate y'all for tagging along. This is I love, Kerry, that you're willing to jump in with me. You're my long-standing Star Trek Imzadi.
Well, wife's not too happy because we had paused the season finale of Last of Us to come in here and do that.
Oh, well,
so we got to get back to that.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's really good too. So
I'll have some questions and we'll ask those on our next deep dive. Rebecca and Tony did a deep dive of the penultimate episode of Last of Us.
Well, we tried. We had technical issues.
Oh, there were.
Believe it or not, Tony had technical issues, which is pretty much one of the signs of the end times. We'll talk about that on the next episode of Geek Show. Also, remember, we live stream the show.
Yes.
Every
Geek Show
Saturday.
Geek Show got this covered.com's our Patreon, and of course come back to see us live at 11:30 Mountain Time on Saturday. Good enough.
We're gonna boldly get the hell out of here.
Let's do.